like the signs. So, first of all, it's just a treat to be here. But I have to say something. You know, Chuck mentioned all these leaders, senators and governors and members of the legislature. One of my favorite expressions, a leader without followers is just a guy taking a walk, okay? We are nothing without you, okay? You have the power. You have the ability to kind of move this country in the right direction. It's all in your hands. So we're thrilled to do what we can do. We consider it a blessing, but it's all in your hands, and I know you're going to make it work. And Donald Trump's going to be elected President of the United States. We're going to take back the Senate and hold the House, absolutely. So it is a great, my name's Norm Coleman. It is a great pleasure to be here. But by the way, you know, not just leaders in the Senate, but really, I got to say, Lindsey Graham is the best friend that Israel has in the United States Senate. There is no better friend. And Governor Kemp is the champion among governors in terms of supporting the Jewish community and supporting the state of Israel. So we're here with two incredible leaders. I was a mayor before. As I used to tell people, I may have senator in front of my name. I have mayor stitched in my underwear, because that was like a real job. You actually could do things. But among the things you got to do is you got to deal with tough times, and I simply have to start by reflecting on some tough times. Governor, your state got smashed. North Carolina got smashed. Lindsey, I'll ask you about that. But I know you've just been out there today. Can you give us an update? Give us kind of, you know, how are things playing out, and where do we stand?
Yeah, well, thank you, Senator. It's an honor having you in Georgia. And Chuck, thanks to you and the RJC for having us tonight. Honored to be with Senator Graham. And what I tell everybody is the best First Lady in the country, Marty Kemp, with us tonight. You know, but I would just ask y'all to keep our fellow Georgians and really everybody in the Southeast that got hit by this storm in your thoughts and prayers. It is really bad out there. This is the biggest storm we've ever had. Georgia Power saying it's the biggest storm they've ever had to deal with. 5,000 poles down. Colquitt EMC in Idalia, which was terrible in South Georgia, had 500 poles down. They got 1,000 in this event. We just put out we amended our state of emergency to call up another 1,000 National Guard troops. So we're deploying resources. Really, there's over 30 counties that literally were completely devastated. I'm talking about just no power, running out of water. I mean, Marty and I were in Valdosta Saturday, and then we were in Augusta today, and we flew in a helicopter from Athens to Augusta, so we got to see McDuffie, Columbia, and Richmond County. And I mean, literally, there'll be a span of road that's as wide as the audience, and there's 15 trees stacked on each other. So, I mean, it's literally taken hours just to cut where you could get one truck through to get into neighborhoods. So it is going to be a long, tough recovery. We've lost 25 of our fellow citizens. North Carolina has more deaths than us. I think South Carolina, we're pretty close to them, but horrific, just tragic stories. 27-year-old mother in bed with her two one-year-old twins that perished when a tree hit their house. One of our heroes, volunteer firefighter, responding to a call, tree fell on his truck, lost his life. Just the worst things that you can imagine, but there are literally tens of thousands of people that are responding to this storm. Georgia Power alone has 15,000 individuals that are working on storm response. The EMCs have thousands. We've got, you know, close to 2,000. Well, 1,500 guard today. We'll have close to 2,000 in the next day or two, and that's not counting all the local first responders, other state agencies, DNR, Forestry Commission, chainsaw teams. I mean, it's just been a huge effort, but it is incredible, the damage. And then to think how strong the storm still was when it got to North Carolina really shows what you're dealing with. And then in the metro Atlanta area, the record rainfall in 48 hours in the metro area before this storm was 9.2 inches. This storm brought over 11 inches of rain in 48 hours. So we're literally dealing with mudslides and avalanches in parts of north and northeast Georgia. So we've literally had to respond statewide. Thankfully, right now, most things in the northern part of the state are getting back to normal, which is allowing us to shift even more resources east toward Augusta, and then on that line all the way down to the middle of the state in the south to Valdosta. But we're gonna keep working hard every day. It's gonna be a long recovery, but just anything you all can do to support those folks that are responding to the storm, please do so, and keep everybody in your thoughts and prayers.
Thank you, Governor. South Carolina has been hit real hard, and
Yeah.
you've been there. Can you give us an update?
Yeah, we got bombed by Mother Nature. Hugo, y'all remember Hurricane Hugo? Okay, it's like Hugo for the upstate. So if you drew a line from Hilton Head to Charlotte, everything to the west is flattened. I finally got to my house, and lines down everywhere, 25 deaths, and probably more coming, to be honest with you. The Congaree River is not even crested yet. Water runs downhill. You've seen the Asheville? I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, it's Asheville, 70-mile-an-hour winds in Asheville, North Carolina. So I live 65 miles from there, so all that water is still coming down. Governor, you've done a great job. I was with Henry McMaster yesterday, my governor, our governor. I'll be in Columbia and Aiken and Charleston Wednesday and Thursday to try to figure out, my main goal is to help you and get out of your way. Call, let me know who to call for the federal government. But times like this, appreciate your police officers. They're protecting your homes, right? And they're without power too. All the linemen out there, some are from out of state, but everybody that's working out there pretty much is suffering just like everyone else. And we just need to thank them when you see them and, pray for their safety. All I can say is we need to bury power lines sooner rather than later.
So let us keep all those who have been impacted in our prayer. On the line of just a prayer, that this is almost the first anniversary of the horror of October 7th in Israel, and I would like us all just to have a moment of silence in prayer for those who have been suffered and those who are still held hostage. May they be brought home soon. So a moment of silence. I thank you all, and I know that the people in Israel deeply appreciate it, and the folks here. So many of us have family and friends, and understand the enormity of the tragedy. As we reflect on that, this election becomes so important. Israel's, I think, very survival is at stake. Well, I think this country's survival is at stake also. So, what we do between now and November 5th is critically important to make sure we win. And Georgia, by the way, you're in the center of the storm. So goes Georgia. So goes this election. And so, we need to do everything because the stakes are so great. Governor, let me start local, then I'll go national. You've just been a champion. Signed the hate crimes bill, signed the anti-BDS bill, signed the the anti-Semitism bill, which is really much like the tough, strong House Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. We've seen in our communities an outpouring of anti-Semitism that is just absolutely stunning. And perhaps the worst to be in many places being seen on our college campuses, supposed to be the citadels of clear thinking, and in the end just the opposite. You've been out front on that. Can you kind of give us a sense of kind of where that is playing out and what else we can do to kind of tamp down the horrible resurgence of anti-Semitism that we're seeing in this country and certainly even in Georgia?
Well, it's one of the I'm the vice chair of the Republican Governors Association, and I led the efforts and wrote a letter to Chuck Schumer the other day on the definition to try to get that legislation put on the floor. And I think just about every Republican governor in the country signed that, really just trying to put pressure to him on that. I mean, that bill would pass if they put it on the floor with bipartisan support, but because of politics with the other side's base, they're just not going to do that. But just know that we're continuing to put the pressure on with them on that. It has been very clear in the state of Georgia for a long time, especially since civil unrest of 2020, that we're just not going to put up with anarchy in our state. You know, we didn't do that when people were trying to burn the city of Atlanta down, and unfortunately the mayor at the time was really not being very forceful in that regard, but we certainly were calling up the National Guard and making sure that people's property was safe and they were safe, their businesses were safe. We did the same thing with the Atlanta Police Training Center with these activists that have been going out and, you know, trying to destroy property, and so we've gone after them, prosecuting them and continuing to stay after them. And we did the same thing when we had people getting out of control on college campuses. And, you know, we are a state that believes in the First Amendment and people's right to, you know, demonstrate, protest, speak their mind. That is what this country is made on and made of. But we are not going to allow people to be disrupted on our college campuses, whether you are Jewish or not. And we are certainly not going to allow people to be discriminated against on our college campuses. And thankfully, we have a university system chancellor and our former governor, Sonny Perdue, that understands that. He made that crystal clear to our presidents. You know, I think I was quoted saying to Colonel Hitches of the State Patrol, if we had people starting to camp out, destroying buildings on campuses or destroying property, to lock their ass up. And, that went a little viral. Marty got mad at me, but anyway, it sent the message that, look, you know, we're not going to allow that to happen. And I think you've seen things get out of control, especially up in the Northeast and on some other campuses, and that's bad for those communities. To me, it's bad for our country, and we're just not going to allow that to happen. And we've been working with state law enforcement, checking in with the university campus police, just to make sure that anywhere around October 7th that we just maintain law and order on campuses, and we're certainly not going to allow people to break in buildings and start camping out on university property or taking over offices.
You know, one would think, one would hope that amongst our brethren, they may look to their left, look to the right, and see folks that they may have been, you know, marching with before, and understand, you know, that Black Lives Matter folks, they don't like us. The left doesn't like us, and you know, perhaps that can have an impact and kind of bring more of the Jewish vote over on the Republican side. Lindsey, kind of a national perspective on this. What are you seeing?
I'm in between North Carolina and Georgia. We have figured this out in South Carolina. So the governor is a true friend of Israel, because I can tell you, he calls me up and asks me, what can I do to help Israel? He's not waiting on somebody. He's proactive, and the First Lady is the same way. You deeply care. These two deeply care about our friends in Israel. It's a tough time to be Jewish in America. It's a tough time to be Jewish anywhere. Now, how did all that happen? So, number one, this is a moment of reckoning for our nation. You have every right to, you know, protest and speak your mind. You don't have a right to ruin somebody's college experience. You don't have a right to go up and intimidate somebody going to college in anywhere in the country because of their religion. That's not protected by the First Amendment. So I want to thank the governor. If you're a Jewish student in Georgia, you're well taken care of. Same in South Carolina. Here's what I've learned. The better you play football, the stronger you are for Israel. There's a correlation there. So, yeah. So here's sort of where we're at. A year ago, not this April, but a year before, I went over to Saudi Arabia to meet with the Crown Prince. I introduced him on the 25th anniversary of the Gulf invasion. He was close to Senator McCain. He was a good friend of mine, and Then Khashoggi comes along and not good. Years go by, and I see things changing in Saudi Arabia. A woman driving by themselves is a big deal over there. A woman going out for dinner by themselves or with their girlfriends without a male escort is a big deal over there. 38% of the people in this Saudi workforce are women. Now, why do I tell you that? History is interesting. It changes very quickly. I see in the Crown Prince a real partner for peace. Now, I wouldn't have said that 2 years ago. So let's remember what October the 7th was all about. How many of you believed it was designed to stop reconciliation between Saudi and Israel? You would be right. You don't get anything for being right. You're just right. We're a cheap crowd here. I don't have any money. We run out of money in Washington. So the bottom line is, I'm very, very physically conservative. So bottom line, we can't underestimate the fear that Iran has of the Arabs reconciling with Israel. Does that make sense? That would leave them behind. The Crown Prince is going to spend $1 trillion with a T to modernize his country. He's going to build a city, Norm, you've been there, that's 100 miles long with no cars. You know, he has got a vision to be the AI of the center of the world. None of that works if people won't go. Now, why do I think he wants to end the conflict and normalize with Israel? It's good for business. The Abraham Accords have been good for business. People from Israel are traveling to the United Arab Emirates, very robust. The Jordanian and Egyptian peace agreements were cold. Abraham Accords are a warm peace. So I believe with all my heart that the Iranians' biggest fear is to end the Arab-Israeli conflict. I've been working with the Biden administration very hard for over a year and a half. I've been to Saudi Arabia and Israel 7 times since October the 7th. Now, why? I care, but 2, I don't want Iran to get away with this. So here's the national perspective. We now see a dark side of the world we thought did not exist in 2023 and 2024, anti-Semitism. We pull the bandage back, and you see under that some forces you thought no longer existed, but they do. And we're going to confront them, and we're going to kick their ass. Number 2, you see the Arabs moving toward the light away from the darkness. And you see Israel able to make peace with those who will make peace with her. Don't tell me about Israel wanting war. Have you been to Israel? They pray for peace. Very small country. Go on the Golan Heights and you'll realize why you really care who runs Syria. So Israel is surrounded by people who want to cut their throats. What's the proper response when somebody invades your country, slaughters 1,200 of your people, burns families alive, put babies in ovens, and rape women? What is the right response? What was our response in World War II? So quit asking Israel to appease the people who want to cut their throats. Stop it. In World War II, we dropped 2 atomic bombs to end the war. Did anybody ask, well, that seems to be too much? No. My dad was in World War II. A lot of people came home that didn't have to invade Japan. So this is not a tit for tat. This is a fight for the existence of the Jewish people in their homeland. This is what this is about. So how does it end? Israel's going to keep fighting to the last person. You can't be a refugee in your own country. The reason they're going to go into Lebanon is they want to have people go back to the north and live. They're going to create a buffer zone by force. All these kibbutzes in the South will be reoccupied because you're not going to be a refugee in your own country. Now, there's two ways to do this, through peace or force. And here's my hope, that once Hamas has been decimated, no longer creating a military threat to Israel, we can continue to work on normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel. The key to sustained peace is to take Gaza and West Bank and give it to somebody else. MBS and MBZ in charge of the place, giving the Palestinians an education system where you don't teach math by if you had 10 Jews and you kill 6, how many would you have left? Nothing changes until somebody takes over Gaza and the West Bank that stops teaching kill all the Jews. And I think the Arabs will do that because it's in their interest. So I'm going to end with this thought. Between now and January, we have a chance on President Biden's watch to restart negotiations on normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel. I'm going back next week. I am a Republican. I believe it needs to be done on his watch. When it comes to Israel, it's not your party, it's what's in your heart.
That trip, and as soon as I got reelected and Marty and I went over, we took a whole delegation. Speaker of the House, John Burns, went, the President Pro Tem of the Senate. John Kennedy went, some other legislators, our economic development folks. We paid for and took our 3 girls over there, and it was an incredible, incredible trip. You know, life-changing from a cultural perspective as Christians, but also having an understanding, especially being in Jerusalem, of really seeing Christians, Jews, and Muslims all getting along, you know, commerce. And then, so we did a lot of cultural things, and then we did a lot of government things. I think I think Chuck mentioned earlier, I met with Prime Minister Netanyahu, President Herzog, the foreign minister, had just incredible conversations with them. It was really, I mean, I never thought they would give a governor that much time, but we had great rapport on a lot of things that we have in common in economic development, certainly being one of those, but also national defense. And I learned a tremendous amount. And then we went to Tel Aviv and did a lot of things economically. So it was just a great experience. But I came back. I mean, I'm so glad I was able to do that before the horror of October the 7th. We visited a kibbutz. You know, we were in Caesarea. We saw how peaceful those people were, and to see the horror that happened on October 7th. I mean, it's mind-boggling. But also just to be in Jerusalem and seeing everybody getting along and thinking, why would somebody want to disrupt that? You know, why would they want to do that? And just to see and learn about the things economically that Israelis and Israeli companies are bringing to the world and to us as such an important ally from a cyber security perspective and many, many other things that we have collaborated on. I mean, it's important for our country, it's important for our state, but it's also important for the world. And I think what Lindsey was just talking about, I mean, I'm just hoping you're successful. I mean, that would be incredible.
Well, we got to win this election.
Well, that's. And let's get right into that, Lindsey.
Be generations for economy and their governance structure that will fundamentally change the way the system works. You've got to give Israel the confidence they need that this Palestinian entity, whatever you want to call it, can't hurt them. And the biggest winner here over the arc of time will be young Palestinians who are not become Hitler Youth, who are not taught from the time they're born to they die to kill all the Jews, to be given an education and a chance to have a better life. Here's what I will tell my friends in Israel. The IDF cannot permanently occupy Gaza. They're not going to change the school system. I'm not going to change this. I don't know how to speak Arabic. I see, Norm, for the first time in my political life, in MBS and MBZ Arab leaders that will lead to the change that Israel yearns for. Having a neighbor that wants to live beside the Jews, not kill all the Jews. I think that's possible, folks. I'm not going over there for my health. I've been there 7 times, and I'm going back next week. This is the best chance in my political lifetime to close a deal that will change the game. And Iran sees the same thing I see. And that's why they're fighting so hard. And I'll end with this. Norm and I have been friends for a very, very long time. He was in the Senate. We served together. He's done a marvelous job, along with Matt, of making the RJC strong and relevant. And I'm going all over the country with this crowd to make sure that we motivate the Republican Jewish community to get out and vote for our country and for our friends in Israel. And I just want to say about our host here, Governor Kemp. If all the governors were like you and understood the world like you, where you help people, and if a guy wants to blow things up, you put him in jail, the world would be a better place.
Here, here. None of my family, none of my neighborhoods. We have a challenge. You know, Donald Trump has reshaped our party, party of working class men and women. He got 70% of Teamsters, 70% of Teamsters supporting him over Harris. Okay. But we don't do as well in suburban communities, suburban women, college-educated men, and we need them to win. What we've heard here tonight, I mean, the choices are so great. The divide is so incredible. The future of our country is at stake. Israel's future is at stake. And so we need to kind of reach out, even beyond the assembled here that love you. What's the message? How do we kind of bring this home? So in the end, Donald Trump gets elected president of the United States. We bring back 2 Republican senators in Georgia. Yes. Okay. How do you close this out? Tell us.
Kemp for Senate starts right here.
Bring it home. How do we win? How do we make it happen?
You need to stay focused on winning 2024. Do not get distracted. That's what I always tell people. And Marty says the same thing, Senator Coleman. It's like, hey, don't forget about us. The female vote, the younger generation vote, which really brings us back to talking about the issues. And people ask me, like, how did I do that? I'm telling them, I'll take Marty around with me. She gets more votes than I do. Working on issues that really matter around the kitchen table, like her efforts to end human trafficking. I mean, that cuts across political lines. I would just tell y'all to remember Kay and Deborah. It is so important that we hold our legislative majorities. We are working very hard in our swing districts, especially in Deborah's, and people like Scott Hilton and a lot of other suburban legislators out there. We're reminding them that we gave you all $5 billion of your tax dollars back because we budgeted conservatively. We've done tax cuts. We've kept people safe. We've gone after human trafficking. We passed the anti-Semitism legislation, anti-hate crimes legislation. We've raised teacher pay. We've done school choice. We've had 3 record years in a row on economic development. So no matter who you are and what zip code you're in, you have economic opportunity in our state, and it's not just for you. It'll be for your children and your grandchildren so they can live, work, and play in the community where they grew up if they want to do that. Those are the things that we've got to talk to people about. It goes back to the record of, where we were 4 years ago and where we are now. To me, that is really how we win this election, is going out and convincing people, look, you may not like Donald Trump personally, but you like his policies a lot better than Kamala Harris's. It is for those kind of people, it is a business decision. You're making a business decision. And it matters who's going to be in the White House when you look at who's going to be nominated to be our U.S. attorneys that are going to be helping prosecute people that are trying to burn down the Atlanta Public Safety Training Center. Who is going to go after individuals that are terrorizing our college campuses and desecrating buildings and other things. You know, who's going to be appointed to the members of our judiciary? Who's going to be in the cabinet? Who's going to be running the government agencies when you think about red tape and bureaucracy from the Environmental Protection Division, you know, our energy policy. I mean, just all these, you think about Sonny Perdue is who's going to be the Secretary of Agriculture? I mean, we have got little devastation from this hurricane in the ag world in every southeastern state that hurricane touched. You know, who are we going to be working with on those policies? And to me, that's how we win this. We make it about the issues and about the policies and who's going to be better for our state and who's going to be better for our country. And it goes to who's going to be in the White House. It goes to making sure that Lindsey Graham is chairing some Senate committee.
That'd be the budget chairman,
being, you know, not being the minority member, and making sure that we have control of the U.S. Senate and then hold the House. I mean, Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, I think, in my opinion, has done a hell of a job holding things together. And we need to reward him with holding the speakership, in my opinion. Amen. But that is what it's going to take for us to win. We gotta work. We got to get the vote out, and don't rest till we do that.
Big round of applause, Senator Graham, Governor Kemp. Thank you all very, very much. God bless. Let's win November 5th. Oh, okay. And I'd be remiss without saying Shana Tova.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.